If you're a discerning, open-minded and dedicated seeker who loves a good deep dive into the nature of reality and consciousness, then do check out my book, The Grand Illusion, composed of over 10,000 hours of research and experience. Find more information and reader reviews at brendandmurphy.com/TGI. All right, ladies and gents, welcome to this episode of Truthiverse. This week I'm joined by Alobar Jones, who's been a friend of mine for many years now, and he just happens to be a professional exorcist with a whole new paradigm around exorcism, demons, mental health. He works across a range of mental health issues in his very esoteric capacity. So, mate, please do jump in and clarify exactly what it is that you do.
Oh, look, let's just make it really, really simple, right? All mental health issues are the result of demonic interference. Right? It's really that simple. And once you start taking the demons out, then their thoughts stop being so wobbly and start on a more human, more normal track.
Like, the patient's thoughts get more centered and aligned and stable, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's currently most people will go to visit, if there's a mental health issue, they'll get medicated for the rest of their life. Like, they'll get this medication, that doesn't work, let's try this other one, and then before you know it, you've got this cocktail of 6 to 10 different medications that you're on, which may change over time. But that's forever. However, what I've been finding is that the thing that the chemical imbalance they're trying to counterbalance is not a chemical imbalance at all. It's a spiritual imbalance. There's a monster living in their head. And if you wonder where the voices come from, I want you to give me another candidate other than demons. Like, who else could it be? Who else? Like, I'm waiting for someone to suggest something. But yeah, like, once you take those guys out, then all of the symptoms disappear.
All right, so let's just back up a bit. How did you get into this very wacky line of work, as some people might see it?
Well, look, I didn't wake up one morning and go, what's the weirdest thing I can do? Like, it evolved slowly. And I used to be in Alcoholics Anonymous, and 6 of the 12 steps mentioned God, so I thought, bloody hell, I better go out and find one. And I went. No, it's it's not an easy time getting sober. Like, of all the things I've done, that was the hardest thing I've ever done, right? And hats off to anybody who's going through that. But I went to the old school churches and they didn't have anything to show me. I went to the newer happy clappy churches and they were nice people, but again, they couldn't help me. I hung out with the Buddhists, and the Buddhists have some good meditation techniques, but they don't show you the really interesting stuff till you've been around for 5 or 10 years and you're ready to put on the orange robe. So I went and did a weekend course in astral travel with some hippies. And they just wanted some money, and that was easy. Like, I had some money, and it paid dividends. I got results. I also did Landmark and a couple of. I did the 12 steps 3 times in 1 year with diminishing returns, which is it's a healing procedure, but they don't see it that way. Yeah, well, they wouldn't use those words, that's for sure. Yeah, but I went and did this thing and it paid dividends. I did these meditation exercises and it worked for me. And then I did another course and I did another course. And on the third one, they just introduced the concept of demons. They say, look, here's some parasite spirits. Here's how you scan for them. Here's how you see them. And I go, okay, that's interesting. And I would go and sit in a 12-step meeting and I'd just scan everybody in the room, and everybody had a major infestation. Well, everybody had 6 to 10 demons hanging off them. It was terrible. and I seemed to be the only person who noticed this. Like, nobody else knew what I was talking about. And I thought, this is really important. This is really important. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And then after about 6 months of not figuring out how to beat them up, I took a one-way flight to India to go on on a spiritual quest to go and find the answer. And the story goes on and on from there, you know, like I would have taken a dozen different trains of courses in astral travel, healing, everything esoteric I've studied, like you know, kind of like yourself, you know, like it's and it does mix in with science if you are ready to translate between those two languages, as you would know better than anybody, right?
Thank you. Yes, you're quite right. I agree.
Yeah, and so like that's how I got involved in it. That's how I decided that was a good thing worth doing. Because I would sit in the 12-step meetings and I'd just listen to people pour their hearts out in such pain and agony, like the stuff these guys are going through in their own head. Like, don't be jealous. You would never be jealous of it. You don't want to repeat their experience, you know. But I thought if I could figure this out, then I could alleviate some of that pain. And as it's turning out, that's what's coming true.
So around the time after you've done, you know, the spiritual quest to India, is that around the time where you decided I'm going to, you know, focus in my energies on this and start really tackling it?
Yeah, totally. Like this is and you know, and I've had opposition at every step of the way. Like if you remember the law of attraction with Abraham Hicks, right? The whole story is think of the thing you want and then get really excited and positive about it, and it will pull it to you, right? And that their attitude to negative thoughts is that they are unholy and unclean, and thou shalt be banished from our social circle if you talk about that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how it worked. That's how it worked for a long time.
Okay, so did you start to take on one-on-one clients? Actually, no, let me ask you, because I know you've done, probably at this point, you've done like, what, more than 15,000 hours worth of meditation.
That's
a lot, like maybe 20,000 or whatever the number is now. It's like, it's a ridiculous amount. So
it's esoteric, yeah.
Yeah. So by this stage, you've got the skill set, I guess, and you've got a certain amount of, like, you know, the different psychic faculties that you can lean on as your toolkit to do this kind of work, right?
Absolutely. Like, you know, I've done, I've fought reptilians, I've fought greys, I've fought mantoids with great success. I formed groups of people who like to do this sort of stuff. And now we have astral travel missions where we have little guerrilla teams who go and blow shit up on the dark side. Like, we're having the best time. But one of the other things that we did was we did a what do you call that? An organizational structure chart for demonkind, for Satan and Lucifer. Yeah, so our team probably knows as much about that stuff as anybody, right, is what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got them all figured out. It's just a matter of man hours to put in to slowly dismantle their structure, liquidate their people, and end their influence here on Earth.
Do you think that the influence can be completely eradicated?
Well, that's what our teams are dedicated to, and we think it's feasible, actually. Like, there is, short answer, yes. Long answer, yes, but it's a lot of work. Like, there's, you know, like, we need people who have been flying or astral traveling for 10,000 hours minimum, because these are the guys who have the awareness, who've got the experience, who know how to map and traverse multiple dimensions simultaneously, how to dissolve our enemies. Like, there's a lot of skills that come through that. And I am so impressed with some of the talented people I'm working with. It is it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. But
go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I suppose people are curious about how demonkind is organized, right?
Obviously, yeah, we got to go there because you brought it up. Let's find out what is the structure that your team has uncovered.
All right. So You have Satan and Lucifer at the top, and there's 3 layers of major demons whose names are listed here, there, and everywhere, right? Well, the major Goetica, stuff like that. And each of them probably has several hundred million agents or minions. And the foot soldier's job is to stimulate the human being for that emotion.
Yeah.
So for some of them, it'll be anger or despair or hatred or self-loathing, and the list goes on, depending on whichever demon you're talking about. Because what happens is that minion will create the thought in that person's Taurus field to go, oh yeah, I hate myself. And then it'll start spinning around, and the human will hear that thought and then start thinking all the crazy thoughts they got and create 20 points of that same feeling, that same energy. All of that is then extracted by the minion and it's sent upstairs to its masters. And, and there's like 6 layers of hierarchy, foot soldiers, sergeants, and officers to the general. But we looked at each of these groups and all of them are on starvation wages, right? And I'd say that, the amount of energy that they're taking out of humanity, the quality of loosh, and I'm going to use it interchangeably with money for them,
cool.
but the loosh that they're getting is, is just enough to sustain themselves, and it always gets passed up, and it's the same at every level, right? And what we thought was you get it. Okay, so I'll talk about Al Ghul because I have a special relationship with this guy.
Can you repeat that name for me? Sorry.
Say again.
So can you say that name again for us?
Al Ghul, Al-Ghul. He's the god of alcohol.
Oh, okay.
He's the god of. He's a Muslim deity. He's the god of chaos and destruction and mayhem and fermentation and rot and collapse, right? And alcohol fits in there.
Yep.
Now, where the Spanish, where the Christian and Muslim empires met was in Spain, and as you would know, the Spanish name for him is alcohol, Al Ghul, alcohol, and then in English it's alcohol. And when people say drinking spirits, they're talking about a very specific spirit. They're definitely imbibing that particular individual, and it's not. The mechanism is no different to the one with ayahuasca, right? But ayahuasca is completely benign and will take you on a journey to better yourself and bring you to realizations to discover how I could be a better person, how I could be nicer to the world around me. Great stuff. Al Ghul, however, is not doing that. He's doing kind of the opposite. And so this is why you can't get a beer in the Muslim world, because they know everything about this guy and they don't want anything to do with him. They outlawed alcohol because they don't want this demon in their people. Fair enough. The Irish don't seem to have a problem with it. The Russians don't seem to have a problem with it. But, say la vie.
The Irish and Al Ghul are like this, mate.
Oh, totally. Come on, the Irish National Day is a celebration of Al Ghul. The world over, the entire world is supposed to get drunk. It's like Christmas for Al Ghul. I don't know what the hell to think about it. It couldn't be crazier.
Yeah, nice.
But anyway, going back to the story. One of the things we've also succeeded in doing is treating alcoholism. So people have been drinking for 20, 30 years. You pull Al Ghul's minion out, you add a couple of other features, and they don't care about alcohol anymore. I had this one guy ring me up. He goes, I drove past the pub today. I finished work at 4 o'clock, and and it was always a battle every time. And I'd drive home and didn't care, just drove straight past it for the first time. Thank you. Right? It's really lovely.
So when you get you get someone like this who's got an alcohol addiction or what have you, and they're like, Alistair, I know you're the guy for the job, help me out. What does it look like on your end when you go to do this work?
Okay, so quite often I can get the minion to talk into somebody's head, and then they get to repeat the words out of their mouth, so I can have a conversation. The 3 of us can have a conversation together.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's a mind blower. And I've actually got a video of it on YouTube. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
All right,
But
yep.
you know, it's yeah. And you know, once you ask them the right questions, you really get to see who they are and what they're about. And once you see that a few times, you really understand what a menace they are. Like all
Right.
of the things that humanity holds dear, all the things that are beautiful and holy. No, no, it's the opposite. And like 90% of bad behaviors, I think, are caused by these. I think, you know, but I don't have the research capacity to really say that clearly. But I will say a lot of bad behavior is caused
That's
by this stuff.
right. Trust the science. So uh, when what I'm kind of like wanting to get into some maybe nitty gritty, like when someone who is say sober and clean maybe goes and has, you know, they head down to the pub and they pick up, you know, a drink of choice.
Yep.
What's happening there? What are you seeing as a clairvoyant?
Well, okay. So I will tell a real life story. This came out of Melbourne when I was living there a few years back. And there was a guy there who was sober for 23 years. And then he, after 23 years, the demons in his head got the better of him. And he went and the phrase is he picked up a drink, right? He started drinking again. So, and he said that he found himself in exactly the place he was 23 years ago. And like not one day had passed in between. And he was standing out the front of the supermarket picking fights and getting drunk.
Wow.
That was what his idea of a good time was when he was drinking. Right. But, you know, this guy's 60 now. Like, so you go, wow, like, that's a very, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do. But you see, the 12-step program, like I always knew, like everybody knows there's sort of a counterbalance to something. Like they wouldn't be able to name it as demons. And when I talk to 12-steppers about demons, they're usually quite hostile to the idea. Like they don't like the idea that this might be caused by demons. So I'm not getting much traction there. But you know, there was a point at which, you know, during my long journey to sobriety, I had to decide how many meetings a week I needed, right? Which was something similar to how much insulin does a diabetic need? How much of calm and quiet do I need to get during my week to counterbalance the crazy in my head? And you'll literally see people like start the meeting all really agitated and really drop out by the end of it. There is a medicine there. Like let there be no mistakes about that.
I mean, I don't want to interrupt your flow here. Hold that thought. But what do you think is that calming factor in those situations? I mean, obviously there's group support, there's camaraderie, there's that sort of that kind of energetic connection and you know, kinship. But what else is going on there that actually gives them that little hit of calm, do you think?
Well, look, demons like chaos and noise and what's the word? Trouble. We'll just call it trouble. They love making trouble. But you go to those meetings and everybody's talking to you about calmness, gentleness, slowness, and making decisions carefully, right? Not spur of the moment crazy impulses.
So it's kind of like they get bored and lose interest kind of thing.
Well, no. Well, look, the reason why I joined, right, was because I knew there was crazy stuff going on in my head, but I listened to everybody else in the room and they go, oh, I know where you've been. I think I thought, I even said that one time. No. And I really, like, I knew how every one of them felt so intimately.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this intrinsic trust that comes through there. Like it's a really wild phenomenon, but
why do the demons quiet down at this point? Is it because there's nothing interesting, chaotic happening in the room?
Because the human's not on their side.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, so think of it. Okay, you've posed an interesting question. And so think of the demons as singing a song in the background, right?
Yeah.
They're singing the song of chaos and drama and picking fights and making trouble and all of the jazz that those guys are into. And like, as a human being, you don't necessarily want to do it. But, you know, as the song keeps going, you start tapping to the beat, you start mimicking the moves, you start doing the book. right? And what the meetings do is they tune you into a different radio station.
Yeah.
And then you can start walking a different walk and talking a different talk and all that sort of stuff. And it really is, like, people call it about willpower, but it really is an arm wrestle between these two forces on a daily, and they say one day at a time, because every day is different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't underestimate the tenacity and imagination these punky little bastards will throw into your head. Like, it's, you know, if you don't drink, they don't eat. So they're pretty pushy on the topic, you know?
Yeah. And I can sort of understand. I like your answer to the question there, because it's sort of like, okay, so you go into the meeting, it's nice and calm, you're getting a different song played. So now you're tuning into a different vibe, you're resonating with something different. But the problem is you can't stay in the meeting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You go out and then the demon song starts to get a little louder, a little louder, a little louder.
Yeah. And so you go back for a fresh dose of calm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and every look, and one of the highest ambitions in that club is to be normal. Like, it's funny, but it's not a joke, you know, or one way or the other. Yeah.
No, I mean, people are really struggling. So, I mean, I get it. Like, it sounds funny to us on the outside, but you've been there, so you know exactly what these guys are dealing with.
Yeah. They gave me a management position in that club, so they made me secretary of the board in Perth.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, look, you know how I got the job? They said, "Oh, that guy speaks Chinese. He must be smart." Yeah. And that was it. That was the whole interview process right there.
Oh, that's great. I love it. So, I didn't mean to sidetrack your main thrust there, your main story,
right.
But yeah.
Oh, look, and we've talked a lot about alcohol, but there is a different demon for each drug. There's a demon for opiates. There's a demon for weed. There's a demon for amphetamines. Like, it's, you know, like the recipe is the same. The ingredients are a little bit different. You know, it's like they're all much of a muchness.
And so I can remember a really interesting story from George Ritchie, who had one of the most famous near-death experiences on record, and one of the most, like, detailed ones. And he found himself traveling quite a bit in this out-of-body state, but he wound up in a bar at some point, and in this disembodied state, he was watching this scene where he realized there's these actual physical people in the bar having a drink and having a good time, or, you know, having a punch up or whatever. But also they were accompanied, and they didn't realize it, but they were accompanied by a number of other beings of different types, such as maybe what you might call demonic beings, or other discarnate humans who were addicted to alcohol, who were looking for the next hit, and they were trying to they were literally leaping into the bodies of these incarnate humans who were drinking, because as they drank, what he described was there was like a breakdown or an opening that would happen in the auric field, and then they were able to penetrate through and get in.
Well, look, and I've had long discussions with Al Ghul, because he and I have a very special relationship, as you might guess. And I asked him about blackouts. I said, what's happening in a blackout? When somebody drinks to the point that they don't remember. And that's where there's enough alcohol in the body to shut down the brain, but the demon is able to grab the reins and control the human body for that amount of time. Mm-hmm. Which is why when people are in blackout, why they do their very, 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 very worst, why they're at their worst behaviors, their nastiest, weirdest, most depraved stuff comes when people are in blackout. Mm-hmm. And and it's because it's not a human doing this, not at all, nothing even close to it.
So it's definitely not the conscious personality of the human that's, at the wheel at that point.
Totally. Well, look, people say when you drink, then your truth comes out, the real you comes out. No, it's not. It's these passengers that you've got. Like, they're the ones who step to the fore. Yeah. Which also tells you something about a person, but there is a better resolution than that.
So what we've got is what sounds like a spectrum of demonic input into our, thoughts and behaviors and stuff. The blackout thing, the extreme end of the spectrum. What other kinds of input can we expect from them? Obviously, intrusive thoughts. You probably get asked about this kind of stuff. Give us some comments around that.
Okay. Well, there are 11 different body systems that they like to penetrate. All right. Okay. So, and I'll say, so the chakra system is one that everybody's probably familiar with, and that's like one of the bases of Hinduism. And yeah, they don't specifically go after that, but another body system that you might be aware of is the meridian system, which is the backbone of Chinese med and kinesiology.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would suggest that we have more than 100 of those non-physical body systems. Kabbalah is also another one. We have a non-physical body system there that's quite famous and well researched by very different groups researching it. But yeah, there are 11 body systems that they like to use, they like to penetrate. And once they're in there, they can be very difficult to find. One of when I got started, I was looking at one type of demons, or one thing, which is the Klingon spirits. Eckhart Tolle talked about them as pain bodies.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so weird, because it wasn't until like halfway in the middle of his third book, he writes about 2 paragraphs that goes, yeah, they're demons, mate. What do you think? What do you think they were? But, he buries it in the middle of his third book. Or Klingon spirits or attachments, all sorts of jazz like that, right? But as far as the spiritual milieu goes, that seems to be the only one anybody's talking about. However, there are at least 10 other different demons that adapt themselves to do different things within the human body. There's some that, there's emotional ones, there's others that are very much about addictive tendencies. And I would say addictive tendencies are different from the addiction themselves. I took a group to the casino one time to just scan people for demons while they're at the casino. And it was no different to what you described in that bar. No different at all. Yeah, like you'd see these little imps hopping from shoulder to shoulder. Go, ah! Well, it was surreal. But you also have ones that are deeply involved in schizophrenia or bipolar, or that's how we understand them. That's the way that we name that particular manipulation of the human psyche that comes through that lever within that body system. We would call schizophrenia, or we would call it bipolar, or whatever it is, So like there are.
This is very interesting. So honing on schizophrenia, like for example, what is how would you sort of characterize, this body system? What are they manipulating? What are they tinkering with? How does that sort of, in general terms, what does that look like?
Okay, so there's a chamber there's 3 CPUs in the body, right? The head, the heart, and the gut. Right. So the head and the heart, we know a lot about. They even write songs about it. Like, Natalie Imbruglia was singing how she's torn because my head says yes, but my heart says no, or the other way around, or whatever it was. Right. And the other one is a soul. We have a plexus, which is the solar plexus. And a plexus is heaps and heaps of nerve endings overlapping each other. Mm-hmm. Now, insects don't have brains. They have a plexus to do their thinking. And the solar plexus is where we get our gut instinct. And our gut instinct, it's very, very simple. It says, yes, do it, no, yes, no. And that's the only computation that comes out of it. But there's particular types of demons that have found different ways to nest themselves within those CPUs. Mm-hmm. And from here, it's very, very easy for them to create delusions and paranoia and concepts that are unique to them, because nobody else shares those ideas about what's going on in the world except them.
Okay, can you give me one of those concepts as an example, because that's intriguing?
Oh, okay. So a lot of them go, I work for the CIA, I work for a spy agency, I'm an underground cover agent, I'm there, like whatever, something along those lines, but there is 0 evidence to back it up. Right. Mm-hmm. Like that's a really, really common one, because it takes them into this world of secrecy, the special mission, and I don't have to listen to anyone else because they don't know what's really going on.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of things, I know exactly what you mean. So someone who has this kind of a demon, in their head, the demon is saying, am I misunderstanding you? Or the demon is saying, I work for the CIA, or you work for this? What's the messaging?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, this is a really important point to make. People don't realize, no, sorry, some of them have voices in their head, right? But what usually happens is that they don't hear a voice and they think the ideas originate from within themselves.
Gotcha.
Right. So they don't distinguish between that's my thought, that's not my thought. That distinction's not made.
So then you have someone potentially who thinks that they work for the CIA. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's what happens quite often.
And I've seen people, I met a guy once in the streets of Sydney one time who thought that literally every car that was driving past, and he was clearly in like a schizoidal state, but literally every car that went past was a police car and that they were all looking for him.
Yeah, look, and paranoia is great. Paranoia is great. It puts adrenaline in the system, and then once your adrenaline's gone, your brain's not working, so they can manipulate you into making really bad decisions really easily. And it's important. It's an emergency. The human's right on board with it. Look, they've figured it. Look, they've had 10,000 years to figure out how the human body works and how to manipulate it. Where the switches they like to flick are, they've got this stuff down pat.
How do you? What about say the solar plexus as a target point? What kind of an entity is interested in that, and what for?
Well, you see, each different demon has a different food. I'd say food, right? Because mostly on the astral planes, the substance is thoughts and emotions. So if you know the love between your wife and yourself, you know it's a real thing. You can feel it. It's actually there. It's just not physical. It's a non-physical object, the love between the two of you, right? And everybody can agree with this. I do feel there is love between us, right? Because on the astral planes, that love is a physical object.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. I lost the question. Where was that?
So I started with what kind of an entity is interested in the solar plexus and why?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So if there's a particular demon that's all about being abused or being smaller than or being stood over or feeling weak, then they'll attack the solar plexus because that's where your self-assertion, that's like your self-assertion organ. Yeah. Your solar plexus, like an army sergeant has a really strong solar plexus, and but somebody who's continually abused will not have a strong solar plexus because they don't know how to stick up for themselves. Yeah. But there are demons who enjoy the extremes of that, like not a normal, healthy boundary setting, but one who's got to step into everybody else's boundaries and one who has no concept of how to hold boundaries. Yeah. And so one demon will ask for one demon will be the bully and one demon will be the victim. And what's even weirder is you'll get a handshake between those two demons within two people. And so they will set up that relationship. It's
but that so this is a really interesting point that you're making, because when I think back to I spoke with I'm gonna have a mental blank, a great lady whose name will no doubt come to me in a minute, and she talks about this thing called, she works with clients who need a special kind of help, kind of a little bit like you, right? Dealing with interference. And she talks about this alien love bite scenario where these, so-called alien beings will manipulate relationships into being for their own purposes, right? So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, alien love bite, sure. But it's not. Sorry, I don't know. And what I'm talking about is weird as well. So, but it is.
It strikes me that they may be sometimes the exact same thing.
There's overlap in the concept, that's for sure. And if I spoke to her more clearly on the topic, and then we could probably match them. Yeah. But yeah, like a bully will walk into the room and find a victim within like the first minute. Nobody knows no, they don't have to talk to anybody, but they just have a natural attraction to each other.
Yep.
And this sick, crazy, they'll find each other and they'll match.
Yep.
Now, nobody says that the law of attraction has to be positive for both parties.
Correct.
Yeah, right. So, and if for somebody who is naturally weak, or has a weak solar plexus, I should say, and for somebody who has an overbearing solar plexus, the two of them have a dance to dance. There is a particular tango for them to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the worst part. Instinctively, it feels right to them.
Yeah, completely.
Because it doesn't contest any of their emotional truths. It only proves them.
Well said.
And there's nothing worse than trying to contest somebody's emotional truth. Like, you're just pushing it uphill from there.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. This is great. So that's right. I mean, people, like you said, people have that instinct. They don't even have to think about it. A bully walks into a room, like you said, and they know automatically who the target is, who the victim is. But you're adding this other really interesting level here, where we've got a demon in the target and a demon in the bully, and they've got sort of a mutual agreement here, because they're both going to generate, if they succeed, a shit ton of loosh to feed on.
Of the particular type. One of I love being the bully, and one I love being the victim, and that goes into the demonic system and feeds their entire structure. Like, it's and they get us humans to dance that dance day in, day out.
Yeah. So I love it. I love some of the stuff that's come up here has been great. Okay, so solar plexus, I think we've covered the brain, covered solar plexus. How about
how about I talk about this? Each different chakra has a particular what do you call it? What's the word? So each particular chakra has a demon that likes to tinker with it, right?
Yeah.
And so the base chakra deals with weight, both too much and not enough, and workaholism. The sacral chakra, those people usually love uppers or amphetamines of some kind, and sex. And so, like, you'll have everybody in the porn industry has got a sacral chakra infection. All the nymphomaniacs in the world have a sacral chakra infection, right?
Born with a particular kind of demon.
Yeah, because like that particular demon wants sexual energy and will just push that person to go get some. And gets anyway, I'll leave that all alone.
They must love Tinder.
Totally. Oh, look, our teams did research into the porn industry, and there is one particular deity that is harvesting all of the orgasms, all of the Kundalini energy from all of the orgasms. And it was doing well when print porn came into being, but when internet porn came into being, it was like the graph, it just took off, and it's into sexual depravity, and it's actually and it's so rich, so to speak, that it can produce think tanks to create further perversions.
Oh wow!
And one of those is the woke agenda. One of them is the transgender story that comes out of that deity. I've got a lot more to say on that topic, but we're going a little bit off topic here.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, okay, we'll circle back to that. Continue, go where you want to go.
Yeah, but the solar plexus are people who like downers, like heroin and weed. If you know somebody who smokes a lot of weed, you push them in the solar plexus chakra, that little spot just under the sternum, and that will feel sore and weak every time. Why? Because there's a little demon chewing on it, and all of the resources that go into rehabilitating and maintaining it are being soaked up by this demon. The heart, it's about what do you call that? Compulsive relationship, but there is a word. They can't stand being alone, and there is a word for this that's just fallen out of my head.
Codependent.
Codependent, that's the word I was looking for. Very clingy, right? Because their heart needs to be in contact with somebody all the time. And once it's there, it's not an easy relationship. This person will be push, pull, push, pull. Is this relationship real? Do you love me? I love you. Do you love me enough? And like all of that drama is the emotions that they feed. And remember that the demons don't have to get the emotion from the particular individual that they're inhabiting. They can also soak it out of somebody else. They can elicit that emotion out of other people. With the throat chakra, it's compulsive lying. And with the third eye, which is uncommon, but it happens, is the pressure of ideas. So somebody who's having big ideas, and the ideas are so big and they're so important, I can't think about anything else. That's why I didn't shower all week, because the idea is so big. Yeah, like this is the kind of thing that you're facing. And so, you know, there is like, and these are major psychological disorders that I'm talking about. Like, these are not uncommon at all. But, you know, I have a demonic explanation for them all, and an exorcism resolution for them all. But, you know, this is research that nobody wants to do without being funny about it. Like, I had a friend years ago who said, oh, yeah, I went to study Tantra for a couple of months, and I just spent the whole weekend in a 10-person orgy. It was the best fun I've ever had. Why am I studying demons again? Why am I doing that? Like I could have gone on a different tangent than that. I don't know if that's everybody's taste, but it sure made it sound good.
Yeah, go on.
But I don't know why I got involved in hunting down demons and understanding demons, just because, like, when I saw just how much people struggle in the 12-step program from demonic infection, and like these guys are pouring their heart out, they're talking about what they really feel and what they really think. And people who will say in public, I don't trust my own mind, you know, which is why the whole thing needs a sponsor. So you've got somebody to ask, is this idea true, or am I just, my brain just playing tricks with me? And I saw those sorts of things happening. I thought, somebody has to put an end to this. Like, there has to be a way out of this. There has to be a way through. There's no reasons why humans should be stuck in this sort of trouble. There's no reason at all. And as unpleasant as the answer is in facing down demon kind, every time we confront them, we are stronger. Life is stronger than death. They don't, and I can say, and if you watch my other YouTube, they don't belong here. They are not born here. They are imported to Earth. They are not a natural phenomenon. And because they're not a natural phenomenon, the metaphysics of them, or this being our planet, our will is stronger than theirs.
Okay.
And we can destroy them every time. But remember, like, these are very, very weak creatures, despite anything that Hollywood will tell you. You know, if you watch a movie and you see a demon in it, then, you know, those things are the stuff of nightmares. But most of the demons I meet are just idiots.
Yeah.
Just idiots who are obsessed with one emotion, with sadness, with despair, with feeling lonely, and listening to them talk, you just want to punch them. So that's not the counselor in me speaking right there, but I just no, but,
a little bit.
When you try and counsel when you try and counsel someone with a demon, the counseling, you're trying to debate a demon to be something he is not, to change himself, and he's not actually physically capable of doing so. Right? So counseling I find frustrating.
One thing I want to ask you this about demons and humans who are no longer in physical density. What was his name? William. Oh, damn it! It'll come to me in a second. William. Someone had a. He was a practicing therapist. He was removing demons from people. He worked with his wife, William Baldwin, and he worked with his wife. Yeah, I think with you it would. And he worked with his wife, who was clairvoyant, and so she could see the demons that they were, speaking to through the person who was actually infested. And what they found was quite interesting. Some of the time, it was a human who had sort of been converted to the demon side and started looking demonic and acting demonic, this kind of thing.
Well, look, and years and years ago, I wrote of 11 different sources of demons. They are produced in 11 different ways, but I will talk about Hindu death rites for a moment, right? Because it's very, very relevant. You see, what happens is like when the physical body dies, then so too does the 4D spirit. The 5D soul goes off somewhere else, but the 4D spirit starts to break up. Now, if somebody's invested a lot of emotion in, say, sadness or loneliness or revenge or anger or what have you, right? That is actually quite a coherent part of their body.
Yeah.
And that coherent part of their body will go, oh no, once an emotion reaches a certain mass, it does grow a mind of its own.
Uh-huh.
And so that emotion is then on the lookout for a new host. Right? And it was part of the original human, but now that human's dead and it's self-aware, it's got to find a new host. So who does it go to? It goes to family members. It rides the etheric connection or the love connection or the kindness. It rides those connections into the new person. Now, in Hindu death rites, they burn the body, hopefully immediately, in order to destroy any of those parasites. They do become parasite spirits.
Yeah.
To destroy them immediately. And the family is considered unclean for 2 weeks, which means they get smudged, they get smoked. They go through a ceremony twice a day for 2 weeks, and they're not allowed contact with people. They stay at home, all that sort of thing. There's a few different procedures to it, parts to the procedure. But that Hindu death rite is specific to preventing a part of a human transferring to another human. And it's only, and the happy emotions don't want to do that. It's only the negative emotions that get desperate and are willing to exploit people. The nice emotions don't do that. They don't want to exploit anybody.
Yeah.
So you can't though, I would have loved to have been at Robin Williams' death, because if I caught his happiness and his energeticness, that would have been wonderful, but it's just not feasible,
Well, and just to clarify for people, it sounds like when you talk about the 4D part of the person, the 5D part. I think occultists and theosophists would refer to the 4D part as the shade or the wraith. This part that is kind of like entitized and then has to go on to become a parasitic thing to sustain itself.
Yep. Okay, yeah. So you've heard the same story using different words from other people, which just verifies that if we're in contact with the same phenomenon, we're just using different words to describe it.
Yeah, yeah. And so then you refer to the 5D part, which is the part that, how do you characterize what happens to that part of us at that stage?
Well, look, there's a process to death. When you go through a reincarnation cycle, the soul leaves the body, it goes back to reincarnation central or the reincarnation factory or whatever you call it. You have a debrief, right, about what you learned and what you wanted to learn. Then you have then you wait around, you decide what you want for the next life, and then you wait around for an appropriate body to be born into, one that will be fitting. I teach this in my courses. I teach, reincarnation mechanics is one of the units.
Cool.
But there's 2 features to this that are not well known, right? One is that a soul can be exterminated in this process. If it has accrued so much negative karma that it, like financially, if it accrued so much debt that it's not feasible for it to pay it, then they won't put it back in the human cycle where it can infect other people with its madness. So some souls actually get deleted or disintegrated, or they return to source as space dust rather than an ascended being.
Right.
And look, it's pragmatic when you think about it,
Yeah, yeah.
And the other one is, and some of those dark souls don't go into the reincarnation cycle and run around looking for a new host anyway.
Okay, yeah. I think there's verification of those ideas in other places, like the theosophists talk about what you just said, like a soul that accumulates so much debt has become so wayward and destructive that it is essentially lost, and they can't, the higher, the oversoul, higher self entity can't bring it back, can't harvest it, because it's just
it's just all toxic.
yeah. There's nothing to bring back.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad that I'm not the first person to stick my toe in the water with this one. But nobody's done more research than you, mate. Like, you've researched everything out there. It's really impressive.
Oh, well, it's nice to be able to swap notes and compare things, because you're able to verify from your extensive explorations, a lot of the stuff that I'm reading about. So it's great cross-pollination.
Totally love it. Yeah.
So where to next? What else can we talk about as far as, I know you started working with a PhD in doing a world first study on removing demons.
No, I never got to complete that.
Damn.
Which would have been the first of its kind.
Would have?
No, well, look, there's no, hang on, I get this straight. There's the first year of your PhD study is you read everything on the topic, and the girl who was doing that research says, I can't find anything, right? Which kind of means that science has no opinion on demons. It has done no research. There is no study. It has no opinion. But, like the Christians call them demons. The Muslims call them jinn or genies.
Yeah.
The Jews call them Ouija, from where we get the word Ouija board. The Hindus call them Butpret, and the Chinese religions call them Mogwai. And you have this thing where, all of these different cultures independently find the same phenomenon, and they all have different names for it, and they all have different stories. Like in Christianity, they'll say never make a deal with the devil, and then you get the story of Aladdin's lamp, where you go, yeah, make a deal with the devil, but you're going to get burned.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful cross correlation there and support when we look at different cultures.
But the science hasn't caught up with it, is my point.
Well, there's so much prejudice in the realm of science. I mean, we've come out of the 1700s. We've got this hardcore materialist philosophy we still haven't fully recovered from, and as you know well, dealing with people, we're still stuck in this materialist mindset. Most of science is infected by it. Is there a demon for materialism?
Yeah, no, yes, there is. He's called the demiurge. You'll read about him in the Gnostic text.
Yes.
And also the one that I was talking about, who is about sexual weirdness, is Pistis Sophia.
Okay.
Part of the great wisdom. Sophia is the great wisdom of the universe, and Pistis Sophia is this feminine part which is stroppy and angry and vengeful and nasty, and it's split off from the rest of the and deities like Jezebel and Kali and Sekhmet are all spin-offs or versions or children of Pistis Sophia.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, that is unfortunate about the study not being completed.
It's what can you do?
This is. Go ahead.
No, look, the universities are very, very conservative, because if they're not conservative, they get frowned on when it comes time to ask for funding. And so of the six universities that have a parapsychology unit that would study this sort of thing, only one of them said yes, and that guy who said yes was Stanley Krippner, who's retired now, but he was in his 80s or late 70s, early 80s, and still sharp as a whip. But he was the only one who was at a point in his career where he didn't care. And we may never get that back in this current system.
Yeah. Have you ever spoken to Lance Storm?
No, but I'd love if you connect us. That'd be great.
Yeah, I don't know. Might be worth having a chat about that. See if he's interested or knows somebody who can help you run the study.
Well, look, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to take it out into the world, but at the same time, like, I think I'd get contests from a few major demons, as I did in the last one, and I also and also the pharmaceutical industry has a lot to lose if I'm right.
Yeah. Well, that's a given. Absolutely. So,
So that'll be interesting.
well, that's right. That's right. You have Big Pharma and the demon world coming after you.
Yeah, like but you know, you can tell how well you're doing in life by the quality of the enemies you make. If I'm pissing off Satan and Lucifer, I'm doing a great job. Let's just be clear about that.
Well, I know you're very good at what you do, man. So, when you're like, I wanted to get into this earlier, and maybe we can circle back to it. So, like working with somebody, I know you've removed a lot of entities from people. How easy is it? What's the process involved, generally speaking?
I I had to revive the group of techniques, like to figure out that there are like I didn't learn a lot of the stuff I know I didn't learn anywhere. I just I discovered it through contact time. So putting on the boxing gloves at night, flying out there and picking a fight and seeing what I can learn.
Yeah.
And it took me 15 years to do it, but I've got students who, after a year's worth of study, are showing great competence in this.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, my courses are wild and they take people from zero to the tippity top of the game. And, it's a step-by-step scaffolded thing. It's as much work as a diploma or an advanced diploma. You'll love it. If anyone who gets involved in it loves it, absolutely loves it.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely going to encourage for anyone who's listening to this and who's interested in this line of work and wanting to develop a skill set to check your stuff out. So, I mean, what's the link? What's the best link for them to go to?
Alobarjones.com.
Alobar Jones. So it's Alobar. Alobar bar. It sounds like a bar of aloe.
That's exactly who I am. Yeah.
That's right. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long does the course take to complete? Like a couple of years, or
a year or a year and a half is probably a good amount of time. But it's a week by week study. So each week we come back, I show you another concept, and we play with that. I introduce the topic. We do a control practice. We do a free practice. And then you have the week to sort of use it, play with it, learn it, make it yours. And then next week we do a part where we answer questions about that, what happened, what worked, what didn't work. I did this, and that happened. What does that mean? And so it's really, I'm there to hold your hand through the process of discovering everything. That, it took me 5 to 10 years to really get my head around, because, and I don't do very much philosophy, right? The hippie waffle can stay out of it and just stick with technique.
Yeah, right, because it's about results.
That's the point, right? If we're going to treat this as a science, then we don't need great mystic concepts and big dreamy, get that out of it. No, if it is a science, if it is a toolkit, then you apply these tools, you get a predicted result, and that predicted result can be repeated in other people. Very simple. But otherwise, it's just frustrating everybody to try and sift through what's useful and what's hippie waffle.
So I want to ask you, working with people, like alcoholics, this sounds like it would be relatively plausible and easy to systematically track, metrics, results, outcomes, and actually like tabulate that. I mean, have you done some of that?
No, I'm a one-man band at the moment. Like I do my astral travel teams, we do all sorts of stuff. We go out and do all sorts of stuff, but I'm barely keeping up with making the YouTubes to report on that.
Yeah. I know how that goes.
I've got a lot on my hands at the moment. Yeah. Oh, mate. It's people don't realize how much goes into making these videos, do they?
No, it's funny, they really don't, unless they're doing it, they have no idea. So, okay, well, let me just circle back here. What aside from the demons, the overt demons, what other critters would you say are causing, most havoc for humans at this point? This concludes part 1 of the show. You'll find part 2 and related materials in my members-only portal, The Truthiversity, the Consciousness-Raising University. This creation is the official home for all my multimedia research and entertainment content. Updated regularly, my members get access to absolutely everything I create, including full podcasts, videos, blogs, courses, audio files, live internal events, the whole enchilada. Grab yourself a free 24-hour pass at access.truthiversity.com.